Hello, my name's Andy Riddell, and welcome to the latest edition of the Thought for the Week for Scrabo Hall. Our lives changed on March the 23rd, when because of COVID-19, the government introduced social isolation. And that has had a massive impact on the daily rhythm of our lives. One of the things we've all realised is how important it is for us to be together, the value of community. And that desire to be together is something that's built into our very nature. It's part of who we are. We are made in God's image, and so we've been made to be together. One of the things I found most difficult over the past 10 weeks is just how unnatural it's felt to be apart. Not to be able to share a meal with our families, grab a coffee with our friends, or be together as a church. Those are all things that we've really missed. The last book in the Bible, the book of Revelation, is written by a man who felt exactly the same. John was exiled to live out the last years of his life on the Greek island of Patmos. John's family and his friends lived in the city of Ephesus, which was 14 miles away across the sea. On a clear day, John would have been able to make out that coastline. He would have watched as boats came in and out. At night time, he would have saw those lights glisten across the sea. And just as we've experienced recently, John could see his friends and his family, but he couldn't be with them. They were separated because of the sea. And it's in those circumstances that God reveals to John future events. In chapter 21 of Revelation, God shows John the new world. And John says, "I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth passed away, and there was no more sea." And you can almost hear the excitement in John's voice as he glimpses into God's new world. He saw a place where God's people would be together, where there would be many happy reunions, where we will meet again with loved ones who have departed. John says this new world is a world where there is no separation. And that's very different from our world today. Our world and our lives are marked by separation. And that separation takes many forms, but it is rooted in sin. The Bible teaches that sin separates, and we have been separated from each other, and sin also separates us from God. How is it then that as John looks into this new world, he sees a place where we are together? That's the amazing story of the gospel. How that even though we have rebelled against God, God has done everything possible for our relationship with Him to be restored. 2 Corinthians 5:19 tells us that God was in His Son, Jesus Christ, reconciling the world back to Himself. 1 Peter 3:18 explains how that happened. That God in Christ once suffered for sins, the just for us the unjust, that He might bring us back to God. And it's on that basis, the sacrifice that Jesus Christ made on the cross to put away sin, that God offers this wonderful promise. Everyone who trusts in Christ will have their sins forgiven, will have their relationship with God restored, will become citizens of this new world, a world where John says there will be no more separation. John's guided tour continues, and there are many highlights, and I would encourage you to take that tour with John through Revelation 21. Let me just lift out one more. John says in verses 3 and 4 that God's dwelling place will be with His people. John sees that on that day, God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. How amazing is it that one day God will be so close to you that He will be able to wipe away your tears. God is not removed. He is not remote. He has not isolated. You can't comfort someone from a distance. You have to be beside them. Ephesians 2:13 tells us that in Christ, we who once were far off have been brought near through the blood of Christ. John says in this new world, God will be close to his people. But not only that, this is a God who's close to us, but it's also a God who knows us. Tears are hugely personal, often very private. They come from deep within us. They are the language of our heart. God understands that language. God knows your heart. God sees your tears. This is a God who is close to us. This is a God who knows us. But it's also a God who loves us. We tend to wipe away our own tears. But look at this prospect. That on that day, the gentleness and the tenderness of God, as he reaches out and expresses his love for you by wiping away your tears. I love how this verse ends. This is a God who's close to us, a God who knows us, a God who loves us. He's a God who's for us. Many of the reasons for our tears are things that are outside of our control. John says, in the end, God can wipe away your tears because he has permanently removed the cause of those tears. John says, in the end, God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, no more sorrow or crying. There will be no more pain, for the former things have all passed away. What a future awaits us in God's new world. And what a comfort this must have been for John in his isolation. What an encouragement it is for us today. As we're all looking forward to the COVID-19 restrictions being lifted and being able to be together again, let's also look forward with anticipation for the great prospect that awaits us as God's people in God's future. A place where there will be no more separation. A place where we will be close to God. Where we will be with a God who knows us, with a God who loves us, and with a God who's for us. The Apostle Paul said, "So shall we be with the Lord.